are we being all superficial and not honest and being hypocrites? And are we not being honest with ourselves completely? And I think if we being honest with ourselves, it would be so interesting to discover what you actually think. Because deep down you know what you actually think. When you're doing someone a favor, are you waiting someone to return that favor to you? Or you just doing it because you want to do it, because you feel generous or you are generous, and you just did it without expecting, but genuinely without expecting anything back. Most of the time, and it happens to me, I actually expect something back. I actually expect that that person will offer something back to me. Like, when you are being honest with yourself in that way, you don't have to tell it anyone, but if you're being honest with yourself in that way, you learn about yourself so much. And that's okay if you feel that way. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you have to change yourself immediately and, oh no, I should not feel that way and I should give and not expect anything back or whatever. We can talk. That can be another conversation about giving and taking, and I think it's just simply saying it just needs to be in balance. If you are with someone in a long-term relationships, we're not talking about children, but if it's a friend, if it's a romantic partner, it should be balanced. It's not when you are only if you have a girlfriend and you are the only one who always gives, that's not gonna be healthy. So that's another topic, but just very shortly, asking yourself how I actually feel about this. What are my purposes behind that? And I think it's very funny and interesting what you will discover if you are being really honest with yourself. But then you can work from that place in the direction that you prefer. And it can take time or not or whatever. That's again another topic for self-development and transformation or whatever. But it's just very funny, yeah, how many things you can discover about yourself, how you actually think and feel. And if we talk about being superficial, I think there are a lot of superficial, of course, superficial people, and they you can actually see it and you can actually feel it, I think. But we also, I think, we can confuse being superficial with other things, liking nice things and wanting to look nice, or have this or have that, or we want some material things, or live in a nice house, or I don't know, we can, whatever the thing is, we can confuse that with actually having a great taste and wanting those things, with actually only caring about this or that. And for example, we say we want a loving partner that's underneath everything, that's the most important. Personally for me, and I don't know, I think you're gonna agree, but personally for me, the most important things is intellect. Not intellect in the way, just someone who is intellectual, who knows a lot of things, who is interesting, who I can talk to, who can catch with any conversation, who is very diverse, has a lot of interesting topics that they can talk about. That's the mind is the most important thing for me, but also who that person as the person, their values, their priorities, their things that are important for them. That is obviously very, very important for me. But, and of course, the person's heart, and it maybe sounds like cringy, but that is important underneath anything. Like, that's the most important thing, at least for me personally. But then I also like other things in my life. I like fashion. I like how the person looks, how the person dresses, how they carry themselves. And of course, we say don't judge by the book, by the cover of the book, but we all do that. That's the first impression, and that's maybe the only impression you're gonna get. So you better make it a good one. You know what I mean? How it works is we look at someone and we are like, oh, they're attractive or not immediately, without knowing them, of course. But then if we know them, we know them, and that's the other thing becomes more important. But like for me, yeah, like someone who looks good, who dresses well, who has a great style, who like that's also important for me. But I would not call that superficial, because I know that it will be not enough for me to be with that person in long-term relationships, or even in any kind of relationships. Because if I talk with that person for an hour and I could tell that it's not interesting, like it's not for me, then nothing will happen and it will not work. It will just not work out. So it doesn't matter how good they dress or how good they look. It will not work out for me, because there is nothing underneath that clothes or that style or the way they present themselves. But if we're talking about being superficial, of course, if you care only about that but not who the person is, it will work out for you. So that's basically the difference, and I know like everybody knows that. It's not like you are 10 years old and I need to explain that to you. But of course, another way of being like superficial is like you going only to this thing because it looks good. Let's say a cafe, just because it looks good, even if like the thing in there is not good, like the coffee or whatever, but just because it looks good. And you're not gonna go to like some niche and like some local things that are better actually, just because they don't look the way you want them to look, if that makes sense, although it can be debatable. But it's just the examples. And yeah, again, going back to being honest, ask yourself, like, why I actually want to be with this person, because what can happen, you can lose yourself in looks. And when you like someone, the way they look or they dress, you can forget the other thing, because you can be so mesmerized by like the way that person looks. And yeah, just being honest with yourself and asking yourself, do I actually dating this person, talking to this person because they are interesting, or do I do it just because I like how they look and I like how it makes me look, or just for my ego and all of this is just superficial? The answers you will get gonna surprise you, and it makes me so like, it makes me laugh. It's funny because like if I'm actually being honest with myself, I'm like, you're lying. You are lying. It's not because of that, or it's just the conversation you have with yourself, and in a deeper level that you go with yourself is just, I don't know, I think it's so cool. And yeah, so it all comes back to like being honest, and that's it.